Good morning, everyone. Let's get started for the day. Um, Welcome to the second session on Oracle Fusion HCM Cloud. So yesterday we have looked at the introduction to Fusion HCM Cloud. So we saw what are basically Fusion applications and what is the definition of this term Oracle Fusion Cloud. We talked about different product families which are there, and any client can implement any of the product family or combinations of those based on their requirement. And within the product family also they can implement the products of their choice. Then we also saw the difference between the on-premise and the subscription cloud services. And we concluded and said that Fusion is available as a software as a service out of those three models. And we compared the on-premise and the cloud subscription model and with respect to the costs incurred by the client. And we said that for any employee in Fusion HCM, this is the life cycle. So you have to recruit the employee. For recruiting, you have to post the job. So you have to do the job postings, interview the candidate, and provide the offer, and then onboard the employee. So all this is part of recruiting. Then once the employee is recruited, he moves into HR. So he becomes part of the HR, and then you have to pay the employees. You have to track the leaves of the employees and the leave payments. And if time and labor is included, if time cards are there, then we have to track the time cards or keep the time of the employee. Then you have to develop the skills of the employee. So that is where learning will come into picture, and the profiles and the HR. What do you call the HR administrative transactions. Then we assess the skills. So then we have the goals, the performance management, and all those things. Then we reward the employees based on the performance rating and all those things. And then when the employee leaves the company, we call those as offboarding kind of thing. So this every employee has to go through these life cycle in the HCM as such. Now, if you see any ERP software, it would any ERP software would have the same life cycle for any employee, more or less. Okay, so that's how you have to understand this life cycle. Now, yesterday we also said that these are the courses which we are going to look into, or these are the contents of the course. And we said that the course will be there for 1 hour every day from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Monday to Friday. And the sessions will be recorded, and the recorded sessions you will be able to view lifelong, but you cannot download them. And the slides and the material and the content will be shared with you for practice as such. And we said that we will cover the security aspects and the FSM export and import aspects, and then we will move into the global HR. Right? We will cover high level from technical to high level to medium level technical aspects of these areas as well. So yesterday we could not look at the upgrades. So how are these Fusion upgrades happening for the customers? So if you see Fusion Cloud applications is a single code line which is delivered for all the product families. Okay. Now there will be 4 quarterly releases per year. So these releases are named as, they follow the year in which that release is being happening. So you say 23A, 23B, 23C, 23D, or you also say 24A, 24B, 24C, 24D. So if this is 2024, so you have 24A, 24B, 24C, and 24D. Right. So we have 4 releases for this, 4 releases in every year. A stands for January, B stands for April, C stands for July, and D stands for October. Now you could also call them as 24.01, 24.04, 24.07, and 24.10. So where each month stands for the month in which the upgrade is going to happen. So if you take a look at the Fusion instance over here and look at about this application, you can see the release on which this current particular environment is there on. So this current particular environment is there on the 24B, okay, or you call it as 24 April or 24.04. Okay, now this 11.13, initially release 11 was there, then after that release 13, and after that on release 13, this is the what do you call? This is the quarterly release. So that's why they call it as 11.13.24.04. You can ignore this 11.13, just focus on this or this. It's one and the same. Okay, so 24B and 24.04 is the release on which this particular environment is there. Now, once the environment is upgraded, okay, how do you, so how are the environments upgraded? Is it that every client gets, every client on 24A, every client gets 24A at the same time? No, it wouldn't be like that. So Oracle has divided the customers or the pods into you call these instances as pods. So you divide the customers into three groups, A, B, and C. So you call them as cohort A, cohort B, and cohort C, right? So if you see, if you put the groups of customers in the row over here and the releases, quarterly releases in the column, you will see that all cohort A customers will get the A release of that year in January. All cohort B customers will get the A release in February. All cohort C will get the A release in March. Okay. Then all cohort A customers will get the B release in April. All cohort B will get B release in May. All cohort C will get B release in June. Similarly, the C release will go in July, August, and September, and the D release will be applied in October, November, and December. So at any point of time, if you see, there will be customers only on two releases. They cannot be on beyond these two releases. So for example, in the month of April, you will have some customers who would have upgraded to B release and some customers who are there on the A release. That's all. You will not have any customer who will be there on previous D release of the previous year. Okay, so that way the upgrades happen automatically every quarter. And based on these schedule, you call this as patching cadence or patching schedule, based on which the downtime will be shared with the customer 1 month before. That the intimation will be given to the client that the release is going to be upgraded. Your environment releases is going to be upgraded. So please plan accordingly. And these upgrades happen only on the weekends. They don't happen during the weekdays. And so there will be a patching which will happen and there will be a minimum downtime which will be there. And after that downtime, you will see the new release. The application will be on the new release. So when you say that you are going to have only 4 quarterly patchings, what if there is an issue in one of the upgrade for one of the customer? Then how do we go about, or Oracle goes about fixing the issue? So there is some concept called CWB or weekly bundles or cumulative weekly bundles. As the name, it is cumulative. Oracle releases one bundle every week, which is going to be cumulative of the previous bundles, which contains the fix. And then customer has to opt for that CWB, and only then that CWB will be applied on to the customer's pod as such. Okay. So that's how the fix will be applied onto the customer pod. Now, 4 CWBs, 4 to 5 CWBs will combine and will become one monthly patch bundle. So either customer can opt for the cumulative weekly bundle, or customer can opt for the monthly patch bundle as such. Okay, so quarterly bundle, anyway, there is nothing like a quarterly bundle as such. Quarterly bundle is itself is the major release. So we are not going to look into the quarterly bundle as such. So the fixes would go on to the customers with the help of the CWBs and the monthly patch bundles which the customers opt in. And that is what it says about the quarterly upgrades and the patch fixes, right? So that's how the fixes go on to the customer environment. Now, we are looking into Fusion HCM. So any product family you take for implementing is going to have something called as offerings. So you need to know that any product family you take is going to have something called as offerings. So you have to choose which offerings you want to implement. Do you want to implement HCM? Do you want to implement ESCM? Do you want to implement financials? So based on the choice which you make for the offerings, the functional areas will for that offerings will be shown to you. So every offering will have functional areas. Every functional area will have task or task list. You can call these functional areas as products, but they are not exactly products, but yes, within the products they are the functional areas. Okay, within the products they are the functional areas. Every functional area will have some list of tasks or the task list or the tasks to task list or the task to perform the operation. Now what is a task, you can ask? A task is nothing but a page which you can open and enter the data into that page and then commit it, or a task can be a process also which you can run, an ESS job or a process which you run which will manipulate some data in some tables. So a task can be a page or a process. Now, the data entered through that page or the data manipulated by that process is going to modify the data in the tables. And these tables are nothing but they are the business objects which are exposed to the external systems. And it is these business objects which are used for integrations with the external systems. And when you export and import the data, you're going to export and import the business objects as such, right? So this hierarchy, you should always remember. Offerings contain functional area contains tasks. Tasks is nothing but a page or a process, and every task will have some business objects associated with it, right? Now you can see the tasks over here by going into setup and maintenance for any particular employee, or rather the consultant and the admin. So you can see the offerings in this particular LOV or list of values. Now, why are so many offerings shown over here? This is a demo environment, and you can see all the offerings which are enabled on this particular environment. Ideally, in real time, here you would see only those offerings which are enabled by the customers or which are chosen by the customers. You will not see all the offerings. Okay, so you should know for which product family how many offerings are there. Since our interest is in HCM, for HCM, what are the offerings which are there to implement in Fusion HCM? So in HCM, you have three offerings like workforce deployment, workforce development, and compensation management. These offerings will have some functional areas related to each one of them. So deployment contains everything about HR, payroll, localizations, interface, absence, time and labor, workforce management, and prediction. And development, everything contains about the talent related stuff, performance management, goal and succession management. And compensation talks about different modes of compensation, incentive compensation, benefits, and total compensation, and workforce compensation, right? So you should know for the module or for the product family which you are implementing, what are the offerings, and you should enable the offerings. Once you enable the offerings, you can see only those offerings over here. So every offering will contain some functional areas. So workforce deployment contains these functional areas. Each of the functional area will contain some tasks over here. You can see all those tasks, and you can see all the tasks over here which need to be implemented. Now, each task, as I told you, is either a page or a process. So if I say create implementation users, this is a page. If I say import users and roles into application security, this is a process. If I say run users and roles synchronization process, this is a process. So every task is either a page to open and configure the data, or it could be an ESS job or a process which needs to be run. Okay, so basically what, and now each of these tasks is going to modify certain data in certain tables. So you should know which are the tables, which are the business objects which are associated with each of the tasks. Now, if you want to go into technical aspect over there, you can go into manage setup content. And from here, you can find out for every task, what are the list of business objects. Like for example, let's say I want to search HCM extracts. So the task name for HCM extracts is going to be manage HCM extract definitions. Okay, using, so this is a task which can be a page or a process. So I'm calling it as a page now, right? Because it opens up a page for me. When I go to the task, it will show me for this task how many business objects are there. Okay, so you can see that a task mapping to business objects, you don't have anything to modify here. You only have to know that these are the business objects which are tied up with this task. So when I open this page and modify or configure the data, it is going to modify these business objects in the backend. You don't call them as tables, you will call them as business objects. So when I export and import, I will actually export and import the business objects over here. Okay, now if you want to know what this business object, each one of the business object exports, what data is exports, then you copy this business object name over here. Then instead of going into setup task list and task, you go to business objects and search for the business objects over here. So you can search for the business object over here, and you see every business object which you have seen for the HCM extract is available over here. If you take a look at any of the business object, you will see what is the data which is exported and into which file it will be exported. And this is basically for XM, this is basically for export and import. But the file name over here is usually the table in the backend in which the data is going to be present. The file name over here is going to be the table in the backend in which the data is going to be present as such. Okay, so this is for your information, for your knowledge purpose. So basically, what are we saying? For implementing an offering, at the end of the day, I should know what all tasks I need to implement. So if you want to implement Fusion HCM fully, you need to know what offerings are there. Workforce deployment contains everything about these particular functional areas. Workforce development talks about the goals, the talent related stuff, succession management, questionnaires, benefits, and everything. So if I want to implement, let's say, benefits, okay, so I need to first know what offerings, and inside that offerings, what is the functional area, and list of all the tasks which are there. Right now, once you know all these things, then it is easy for you to go and start implementing this one. So at the end of the day, what are we saying is, if you want to implement any Fusion module, you should know what are the tasks which you need to implement. These tasks will be grouped under functional areas. These functional areas will be grouped under the offering, right? So once you know the list of tasks, what is the next thing to do? Go to the task, configure the data, and then export and import the data into various environments, into test environment and other environments, and then go live on the appropriate date. So this is about how these offerings and functional areas, they work in tandem, right? So ultimately you should know whether it is recruitment or whether it is anything in HCM. So if you see, for recruitment, you have recruiting and candidate experience as the offering. So you should know how to implement these functional areas and the tasks inside those, right? Then if you are implementing something in procurement, this is a functional area. Then you have supply chain, you have then compensation management, you have a lot of things are available over here. So you just need to know how to you just need to know where to go and which is the task to implement, right? So if you know that navigation of the task and the offerings and the functional areas, you can start implementing or setting up the data. Right? That is how the Fusion will be there for any product family, be it SCM, be it HCM, be it anything. It is going to be the same as such. Okay, and this is how the upgrades are going to happen. So this is about the introduction. Now we will go into the navigations. So before we go into the navigations, I just want to pause and then ask if you guys have any doubts in whatever we discussed. Did it give you a high level overview of what we are going to see? So basically, for every module, we are going to look at the list of tasks which we want to implement. Yes, any doubts?
Yeah, one question. So actually, I see. You have shown us some page, right? Where actually .xml page, and that would be used for importing the changes into from one instance to another instance, and that would be same as table name, right? So if you don't mind, can you please query that that one in
I'll show
as a
you.
table, and
I'll show you in the navigations from where we can query the database.
no. I know where actually we can query the database. Just I would like to ensure that whether that is same as the table name or not.
Yes, that will be same same as the table name.
Okay. So
You can go to tools, reports, and analytics.
yeah, tools, reports, and analytics. So is this something like if you are having R2L experience? So in R2L, if you would like to get something like the table underlying a form, we'll be going to the tools. We'll going to the find, and we would be getting some table over there, right? So is it same as that one only?
Yes, for export and import, yes, but you should know the sequence in which you have to create the data for every functional area, which task to access first, which task to access next. That sequence is not there in the setup and the maintenance. Okay,
Okay.
that sequence you will know when I cover that particular topic only.
Okay.
So here you just give some data set name, use the data source as HCM, and you can write in the SQL query. So you can say select star from per ext definitions underscore v order by creation date description. So you will be able to see the data. By default, it shows only 5 rows and maximum 200. And when you click on view, you can see the tree view. We are not used to seeing the data in the database in the tree view. So we open it up in the table view, and then we query the data this way.
Okay.
Right. So for anybody who wants to query the tables, this is the only way you can query in Fusion, because Fusion is provided as a software as service. So as per the architecture of the subscription model of software as service, even the database also comes along with the service. So you don't have to install any database. Rather, you cannot install and try to access this particular instance because you wouldn't have the access to the database. And this is the only way you can access the database. If you don't have access to this function of these reports and analytics, you will not be able to query anything. Is that clear?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other doubts, guys, before we move into navigations?
Yeah.
Yes.
Shiva, in the setup for the workforce deployment, for initial user, for some reason, I'm seeing only one task on my instance. And I think you had 4 tasks.
See, usually it shows required tasks as a default thing. You just have to flip it to all tasks. Then you will see all of them.
Okay. And other one is I see only 2 columns, tasks and scope. I don't see the help and predecessor and notes and action. The 4 tasks are hidden.
You should actually click on view columns, show all. By default, not all columns will be shown. You have to ensure that this for these particular tables, wherever you see, not only over here, in any page, if you have, you will have this view, format, actions, values on every section. So please explore those things. Otherwise, you will not be able to, you will miss certain things.
Okay, makes sense. And help is available only for 2 of those records. It's not available for the rest of them.
The thing
how do we
is,
handle
even this help icons also, you can see if we hide the help icons, they will not be visible on the pages. So if you show the help icons, then they will be shown. Now this help over here is coming from the Oracle applications related thing. Okay. you don't have a way to configure it. For some of these, it points out to the reference in the documentation. But actually, if you go into the page or the task, right, you will see this icons everywhere, and it will take you to the online documentation of this one, and you can query more about that, or you can search for this in the documentation. So basically all these things, how to go to the documentation for every section and look at that particular thing, we'll cover as part of the navigations now.
Okay. One other thing, here the color of the tasks is in turquoise or blue color. For me, it is in red color. So is it something I set up somewhere, or is it because of some access?
That you're looking at your instance, or you're looking at any demo instance?
I'm looking at my instance.
Okay, so there will be customizations as part of configurations. There you will have appearance and structure. So from here, you can see this. Somebody would have created a sandbox and changed the appearance of the text, the tiles, the background images, everything, and published that sandbox onto the mainline environment so that all the users in that particular environment will have that appearance. So when we go to customization, we can see that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Right. Any other doubts, guys?
So performing reports and analytics, which role is required?
That you would need the BI publisher, administrator, BI publisher, those things would be required, and implementation consultant. If you have that role, you will get that. So basically, I am coming to that point which says that, okay, when I go to the home page, I log in with a user account. I see only those functions, those navigations, those menus, those entries for which this user has access. Now, this user has access to only certain things. And how do we know which they have access to? You have to go to Security Console. Now, this is under tools. Not everybody will have access to this. So if this user is a IT security manager role, if they have, then only they will see this Security Console, and that particular person is managing, that particular person is responsible for the administering the security on that environment. If you take a look at any of the user in this particular environment, you can see what are the roles which are associated with that user account. So this user, this is the login. How do we know that for this user, this is the login? We can see in the user account details page for every user, what is the login and what are the roles which are associated. So you can see that this user has application administrator, BIP roles, application diagnostics administrator, implementation consultant, benefits admin, benefits manager, benefits specialist, right? A compensation admin, compensation analyst, compensation manager, compensation specialist, employee. He is an employee in the company, so he has employee role. He is a manager, so he will have my client groups. There is some reporting roles also available, and he is also having some additional privileges from the recruiter perspective. You can see he is also has the dashboards access. He is an analyst, he is a manager, he is a specialist, he is a hiring manager, and he also has HCM application administrator, HCM integration specialist, HR analyst, HR help desk related stuff, IT security manager role. That's why he is able to see Security Console, learning related stuff. He is a manager in the company. He has a team which reports to him, so he will have line manager role. Then he is also a payroll admin, payroll manager as well. So a lot of roles are there. He is a recruiter, he is recruiting admin, recruiting manager. So when I talk about roles, you will understand what are all these things. But what you see on the UI when a user logs in is entirely because of the roles which the user has access to. If you're not seeing something, it is because that user does not have access to that, or the roles have been customized and removed access to that particular user, or there would be some customization which would have been done at the structure level to not show. Let's say this icon I don't want to show for this for anybody in this particular environment, then I go to customization, I remove the access to this one and then don't display this. So in this structure, this menu will not be displayed. And then I publish that sandbox onto the entire environment. So for everybody who uses that particular environment, they wouldn't see this irrespective of the role. So roles are something through which the security is handled in Fusion. If you're not seeing something, it is because of the role hierarchy associated with that user account. Is that clear? Whoever has asked this question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other doubts, guys?
Yeah, the function areas which you have said, like for example, workflow development and then compensation. So these are having like the business objects, right? So
yes,
can you customize those business objects and task?
Actually, you won't have the need to customize those things. There is little bit of customization available on the business objects, but more or less you will have access to everything. You can have flex fields, and those business object tables will have the flex field columns which you can configure and you can see on the page, and you can build your own reports and use them at wherever places you want. So you can call that as customization.
Okay, on each functional area, I can customize for each task as well, right?
Yes, you can customize. Flex fields are there. You can create flex field context. So when I cover flex fields later, after global HR, you will understand all those things. So for now, I don't want to go deep over there because it will diverge the direction of the course content. So what you have to understand is you are given some user accounts, you have given some environments. When you log in into those user accounts, what you see is exactly because of the security which that user account has. Now, because these all user accounts are HCM_IMPL, which means these user accounts are implementation consultant, they will almost have access to all of them, all the functions. So that's why if you log in with HCM_IMPL, you will have access to everything. You can see that for financial courses which the institute is taking, you can use fin_IMPL. For supply chain related stuff, they have SCM_IMPL. But for HCM, you have almost I think 20 logins which are there. HCM_IMPL 1 to HCM_IMPL 20 users are there. So you could use any of the user account, or you could also create your own user account, which I will cover in the security part after the navigations. And you can use this particular environment. But only thing is we do not know for how much time this environment stays, because these are Oracle demo environments. If they are down for upgrade or some other environment comes, then you may have to create your new user account again over there. But you have some ways of exporting and importing the data which you have already created, which we will discuss in FSM export and import after the security. Okay.
Okay.
Any other doubts, guys?
Shiva, these required tasks, are they same for all instances, or do they change from instance to instance?
No, they are basically based on the functional area, and these functional areas are fixed for a particular offering, and hence even the tasks under that are also fixed. If you are not seeing certain tasks, it means that you don't have a role which gives you access to that task. Every task comes with some privilege, and those privileges, they are part of the role hierarchy, and those roles are part of the user account access. So somewhere the access, if it is removed, you will not have access to the task. So if you want to know the list of all the tasks, then as an implementation consultant, you can see in this demo environments for every functional area, what are the total list of tasks which are there as such. And more or less, these functional areas are listed down in a kind of a sequence in which it makes a logical sense to implement. Because, for example, if you see, why is initial users always a first functional area in any of the offering? That is because without having implementation users and creating the security for that, you cannot proceed forward over here. Then the enterprise profile, it contains about the geographies. So without having the geographical data for the country for which you are implementing, you cannot use the locations created. Then legal structures. This is all about the company. If you are implementing a Fusion HCM for any country, you should create the company physically, which is there on earth in the Fusion HCM, and then bring the registrations of that and all those things over here. So without having all these things, you usually do not go for bringing the employees or loading the data for the employees. Okay, so that's how, in the sense, without having organization structures, you will not go for the workforce structures. Without having workforce structures created like grades, rates, ladder, jobs, positions, actions, locations, organizations, divisions, departments, disability organizations, collective agreements, grades, rates, ladders, jobs, and positions. Without creating all these things, you're not going to hire employees if you're doing a fresh implementation. Hire employees means you're not going to bring the employees who are already hired in the company into Fusion HCM, right? So you create or bring all the users over here only after you have all the enterprise structures and the workforce structures created. Once you bring in with all the then you will have all the security profiles and the role provisioning rules. So based on the role provisioning rules, the roles will be allocated automatically, and then you will load the data of the bulk employees and bring in the employees, and then you configure the information of the employees as such. Okay, so it is more or less in a logical sequence over here, but they won't number it as this is first, this is second, this is third. What you have to understand is what are the functional area, what are the offerings for the HCM, for each of the offering, what are all the available functional areas. Let's say I don't want to implement payroll for a country, so I don't need to choose the offering for the payroll when I implement that particular offering, right? I don't need to choose the payroll. So we will see that when we do the export and import, certain things you can choose, and those tasks will not be visible if you are not implementing that. Like for example, here you can see all of them over here. Ideally, you don't see this, all of them. You will only see those which are enabled for implementation. Okay.
And does the asterisk mean anything?
Which
the
one?
In the functional areas column, some of them have asterisk, the star in front, and others don't have it.
So what does it mean is, for this offering, these are mandatory. Star means whatever star is there, it means it is mandatory. Now, some of the offerings you will see, or most of the functional areas you will see, they are having shared. So what does shared mean? This functional area is shared across multiple offerings. So you choose any offering, you implement that functional area, it is equivalent to saying that this functional area is implemented for other offerings as well. Like for example, if I say, if I want to implement financials and HCM, so the name of the company is not going to change, right? If I want to implement financials, so the implementation users, I have to create whether I'm working on supply chain or whether I'm working on financials or HCM. So this task or this functional area will be there for almost all the offerings. Okay, even if I'm including recruitment also, I should have, if I'm including recruitment, I should have the initial users for implementing that, right? So that's why you will see that something which is shared across all the offerings, you can see that they are common to all of them. And if you implement that as part of any of the offering, it is equivalent to saying that you have implemented that for other offerings as well. You don't have to worry about these shared ones. You can only look at those things which are not shared in that particular thing. So here you can see data exchange, recruiting and candidate experience, job requisition, candidate. So these are specific to the recruitment area, and these are not shared with others, right? Something which are shared with others, they are part of the others. You can see which offerings they are shared with. And then you can see if you, let's say that you are implementing recruiting and HCM, okay, then this offering will also be there. Enterprise profile, legal structures will be there. Now legal structures is also there in workforce deployment. So I can create all the legal structures in workforce deployment and then say all the tasks I have implemented. So it is equivalent to saying that under recruitment, the legal structures functional area is implemented. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Any other doubts, guys?
Yeah, so I just had, so like you mentioned, we had basically offerings and then functional areas under that, and then we have tasks and processes for each functional area. I wanted to know, like, is there like a difference between what the task and process is, or like?
Okay, a task, it can be a page or a process. Okay, so when I say process, it is an ESS job. So a run users and role synchronization process, if I click on this task, it opens up a ESS job which I can submit. So I told you about when you subscribe for a particular environment with Oracle, you will get various instances. Each instance will have something called as a size. You call that instance as a pod, okay? And that pod will have a size. So that size is usually the t-shirt size like X, XL, S, M, M2, M3, like that. Now, based on the size of the pod, the number of servers of each of these categories are going to be there. So before you go into number of servers, what are all the servers which are there? You can see UI server, service server. UI server handles all the user interface requests. Service server handles all the REST APIs, SOAP, and the integrations between the external environments. ESS server is the enterprise scheduling server, which is nothing but the concurrent server or the concurrent request server in EBS. Where you submit the concurrent request. So here you call that as a ESS server, and everything in ESS is based on jobs. So when you submit a job, it will have number of threads in that server, and based on the threads, the jobs are run. Then you have BIP server where you'll have the BI request, the OT BI request, and all those things which will be run. Then you have something called the UCM server, which is called Universal Content Manager or Content Server, or Universal Content Manager server, or content server, which is called as a file server. So every instance or every pod is going to have these servers. The only difference is going to be how many of each of these servers are going to be there. It depends on the size of the pod. All right. So this ESS server is nothing but it handles the ESS requests. So this is a process which you are submitting. This is not a page where you are configuring some data. Now, if you open a page like this, create data role for implementation users, it opens up a page. This is not a process. I have to configure some data on this particular page. So these are the two types of tasks which will be there. Either a task can be a process to be run, or a task is a page where you configure the data. So when you submit that process, internally it modifies some tables, some data. When you create data over here, it creates data in some tables. So basically, whether a task is a page or a process, it is modifying some data in the tables, and those tables are nothing but they are exposed as business objects. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I could not start the navigations today. No problem. We'll continue with the navigations. I hope there are no more doubts. Does anybody have any more doubts? Okay, thank you. So let us look into navigations. So you are given, you as an implementation consultant are going to be given this login. So prior to you given this particular login, let's say there is a scenario, there is a company X, okay? That company X wants to implement Fusion HCM. So they go ahead and hire implementation consultants because the company itself does not have that capability of implementing it by themselves. So they hire implementation consultants like you. Now, when that particular client has already subscribed to Fusion HCM Cloud for that particular implementation or for that license for that particular product, then that client would be given some instances. So they would be given some development instance, they would be given some stage instances, they would be given some test instances, and they would be given one production instance. You call this instance as a pod. The terminology of a pod or instance, whatever you want to call, or environment, they are the same. Okay, but just understand that the terminology which Oracle uses is called the pod. So usually before the instance are given to consultants, there will be this development instance on which the implementation users will do the implementation. From the development instance, it goes to the test instance, and from there to stage, and then to production. So these all are Fusion environments only, which are at the same release level. So once you implement it on the development environment, you have to migrate all the data from development to test, release it for testing, and then from there you again move it to stage and then to production, which is when you go live on the implementation. So you would be given a development environment for implementing. Now, you should be given access to this, right? So who is giving that access to you? So there will be some administration users who will create these implementation users, and that they will give you the access. So once they create the user account for you, they would automatically add the roles which are required for your implementation, depending on whether you are implementing recruitment or whether you are implementing HCM modules. So you would be given roles like application administrator, application implementation consultant, HCM application implementation consultant, or HCM application administrator. So there are different types of roles which are there. We'll talk about those roles later. But the admin user will create the implementation user accounts and will add the roles and will give you that user account login to you. You as an implementation user are responsible for creating the application users. So you would bring in the employees, add the employee roles to them. You would bring in the line managers, add the line manager roles. You would bring in the administrators and add the admin roles to them. You will further create HR users, payroll users, benefit users, compensation users, and recruitment users. So here you have to understand that the difference between a user and an employee, anybody working in the company, irrespective of which department or job, is an employee in the company. So they are using the system as an employee in the company. But you as an implementation consultant are not an employee in the company. You are a user of the environment, right? So you will not have the role of an employee. So when you create application users, you will create application user and you will log in through employee and then review the if the roles and everything are working fine, or the security is there, or all those things, right? So the implementation consultants are responsible for creating the application users. Now, once you have been given an instance and the login, the next thing you would do is to log in over here and you will see this home page. So for you to understand what is all these things, I will take one session on the navigations so let us understand from here, what is this breadcrumb, or what do you call this, hamburger kind of a thing. This is called navigator. So what shows in the navigator is basically the menu. There is a menu associated with this navigator. That menu is going to have menu entries. So each entry over here, you call that as menu entry. Now, each one of the menu entry will have sub menus answered, sub functions under that. All right. Now, whether this menu should be shown to this user or not is again dependent on the security associated with this user. Now, since we are into HCM, I will cover those important menus which you have to know from HCM perspective. So this is under sales. You don't have to worry about this menu. This is under service. Again, you don't have to worry about this one. We'll not look at that. The most important thing, the first most important thing is me. So if you see a me menu in the user login, it is nothing but employee self-service related menu functions. So if you check it over here, if you see me, they are anything under me is the employee self-service functions facing the employee, which you want to show, which you don't want to show, all those things, everything will be coming under me. Then the next menu will be my team. My team will be for the line manager. So if you are a manager in the company, or if that employee is a manager in the company and he is leading a team, so he will have the my team. If the employee is not a manager, or if the employee is a manager but he does not have any team, then they wouldn't have access to this particular thing. Okay, then my client groups. This is the third important menu, which is very important. This is for all administrative related functions, irrespective of which module you are an admin. You are a HR admin, you are a benefits admin, you are a payroll admin, you are a recruiting admin, you are a time and labor admin, you are a compensation admin. Take any module. inside HCM. Okay. For each of these, all the administrative functions will be there under my client groups. And you can see over here that anything under me, all these sub functions are related to employee self-service related stuff. So personal information, it opens up the employee's personal information. Directory, you can see your organization directory, what is your organization hierarchy, and how you are connected with your colleagues and all those things over here. Connections, you can see how you are connected with your fellow colleagues in the environment, and all those hierarchy, who are the representatives. So you can search for any employee and find out who are the HR representatives, who are the payroll representatives, who are the benefits representatives, who are the union representatives for any employee. So these are called areas of responsibility. Certain people in the organization will be designated some responsibilities. You call that as areas of responsibility. So for me, I want to know who is my payroll admin. I can just go to connections and search my name, and then I can see who is my payroll representative, and I can directly connect with them. Right. So you want to connect with your benefits representative for query on benefits. So you can query everything from here. Okay. So as I already told you yesterday, any of these page can open up in 3 different modes. One is a classic UI, one is a VBCS UI, one is a mobile responsive UI. Now, since Oracle is moving away in the initial phases, all the employee self-service functions are moved away from mobile responsive pages into VBCS pages. So most of these pages you will see in VBCS and Redwood patterns. Okay, so VBCS pages are HTML pages with Redwood design patterns backed up by JavaScript on the client side validations and REST APIs in the backend, which access the data. And then, what are these REST APIs using? Obviously, this REST APIs must use the business objects in the backend, from where it is fetching and then posting and then getting the data and then putting the data and updating the data. So that's how it is connected. So each of these page for you can open up either in mobile responsive or in VBCS. Now in this demo environment, let's say one of the page opened up in a mobile responsive or VBCS, but in your organizations, the same function is opening up in mobile. What does it mean? It means that your organization has not flipped the profile or not moved away from the mobile responsive UI into the VBCS UIs. So that's how you have to understand. Now, some of the modules, let's say, for example, absences, they have mandated that all the employee self-service functions for absences will be showing in VBCS only. Then you will not see mobile responsive pages for absences. But in prior releases, the flexibility was given to flip between mobile and the VBCS pages. So you got to understand those things. Like if in this environment, it is opening up in VBCS, but in your organization, in your work environments, it is not opening up in VBCS, it's opening up in mobile responsive, which is centered page pattern. Right. I'll show you the difference between a mobile responsive page, a classic page, and a VBCS page. Okay. So then you can understand how to identify whether the page opened is a mobile responsive or a VBCS page. Very simple thing. When I click on any function, if that particular URL of that particular task or page contains the keyword Redwood, then that page is a VBCS page. Okay, it's very simple. If that URL is changing or it contains the word Redwood inside that, then it means it is a VBCS page. Like for example, if I say connections over here. So if I click on connections, you see the URL is changing and the keyword Redwood came in between. So all these VBCS pages are following the Redwood design pattern. So let's say I want to search for an employee who is Curtis Feety. Now, where are these employees? Who created these employees? These are all demo employees, which are there, which will be there on every demo environment. Okay, so even if you see this environment, they will be there. This environment, they will be there. This environment also, they will be there. So Oracle Demo Services team would create all this data with the organizations and all those things. So you can see the employee hierarchy, the managers, and the organization chart, the various representatives of this particular employee. Okay, different types of representatives, and some description about the employee, which the employee has written, what are the career interests of the employee, and what are the personal skills and development of the employee, and what is the experience and what others think about this particular employee. They have commented over here, right? So how do you know this is a VBCS page or a mobile page? You can see that any VBCS page will have this keyword Redwood. Okay, now in your organization, you can connect it, and then you can see from your employee self-service. Okay, so anything which has this Redwood is always a VBCS page. Point. You can that's a blind rule. If it doesn't contain Redwood, then it is a non-VBCS page. So it could be a classic page or a mobile responsive page. So how does a classic page looks like? So let's say I want to hire an employee. Who can hire an employee? An admin can hire. So administrative functions will be there in my client groups. Let's say I want to go and hire an employee. So I go to new person for hiring an employee and then start to hire an employee. So when I click on this function, it is opening up a page for me. So any page which opens up in a guided or a train related thing like this, right? Or a train related thing, right? So for implementing this task, you have to navigate to these 5 pages and then you can complete the task. This is a classic page. There is no specific pattern. You will have sections, you will have to configure the sections, the data, and then hire. Now, the same thing, if you want to see it in a mobile responsive page for hiring, okay, for mobile responsive page for hiring, again, hiring is an admin function. So go to my client groups and then so go to hire an employee. Now, in the previous release, when I clicked on hire an employee, it was showing up in mobile responsive page. Now they moved into Redwood. So here, hiring an employee now is happening through the Redwood page over here. All right. So all these things which you see from the classic page have been moved into the Redwood pages over here, or the VBCS page. I just want to show how to open up a mobile responsive page. The pattern, I just want to show it to you. Just a second. This also is moved into Redwood. Okay, I'll show it to you tomorrow. I could not start the navigations today. Anyway, I'll cover Monday's session entirely about navigations. All these navigations which are important to us, the sub-menus, the sub-processes, from where we can navigate to what and all those things. We'll cover all of them in the, what do you call, in the next session on Monday. Okay, so let's say if I want to promote and change position, let me see. Okay, this also is moved into Redwood. So almost most of the places have moved into the VBCS pages. Okay, so we'll look into the navigations. I'll show you one mobile responsive page. You'll get the difference. In mobile responsive page, everything will be centered on the UI. Okay, unlike the classic page where it will be scattered. So that's easy way to differentiate between what is a mobile responsive UI and what is a classic UI. Okay, so I'll stop it over here, guys. I hope it was an interesting session. So if you are interested, please go ahead and enroll into the course. I'll continue the navigations. I'll cover all the navigations on Monday. Any doubts, guys?
These pages can be customized?
Yes, these pages can be customized.
Using the Bootstrap classes?
You can customize using sandboxes. You have Transaction Design Studio. You have autocomplete rules. You have sandbox customizations. You have Visual Builder pages customizations. Different customized page composer is there. You have different types of customizations which you can
when
do.
Updates happen, it doesn't disturb this, right?
You will be publishing. You will have to publish the changes or discard the sandboxes before the upgrade happens. That's the best practice.
Shiva?
Yes.
These Redwood pages, why is Oracle pushing it so much? And I heard something about artificial intelligence on it.
Yes, there is a generative AI link up with some of the tasks which they are pushing for the AI. Like for example, in HCM, you have goals. If you type in a goal and then use AI assist, it will give you the data for the entire goals. And then, so they are trying to push generative AI, and that is they are doing it through VBCS UIs.
Okay. You'll be
And moreover, these VBCS UIs are open stack. They are not related to ADF pages like the mobile responsive pages. So you can create your own VBCS pages right from scratch if you are an expert in the REST service handling, JavaScript, and then the visual builder kind of navigations.
will you be demonstrating those regenerative AI stuff?
In HCM, there are at places, we'll see when we go into that goals topic. I'll show you that.
Okay, perfect.
They're still moving. Maybe down the lane, all the pages will start to get it. There should be a functional use case for that. You just can't use AI everywhere, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a bit scary for everyone right now.
Somebody who want to write their appraisal, they are using ChatGPT and then writing it. So it's like technology has changed a lot of things basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yes. Yep. Thank you, guys. We'll meet again on Monday, and I'll show you all the navigations.
There is no class tomorrow.
No, Saturday and Sunday we will not have classes unless I explicitly say that I want to take a separate session because we lost some classes or something like that. There won't be a session on Saturday and Sunday. Usually I don't take on Saturday and Sunday.
And also, I just wanted to know, VBCS is a mobile response also?
Yes, you can open VBCS pages in mobile as well.
So it is a combination of classic and mobile response.
No, don't call it that way. Oracle will not like it if you call it that way. VBCS pages are HTML pages with Redwood style patterns. They are CSS style sheets backed up by REST service and JavaScript. Okay, so you can configure, you can make changes on the pages, but mobile responsive pages and classic pages are ADF based pages. So there you will have restrictions on the task flows and all those things. Here you don't have all those restrictions. It's totally away from the ADF. So that is how you have to understand it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
meet again on Monday. Please join again on Monday at 7:30 a.m. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.